AUT Comics Podcast, episode 256. My name is David Bruck. We're here to talk comics. We're here to talk to comic creators. And this week we have a special co-host, CJ Jennings.
Hey, everybody.
CJ is been writing amazing reviews for APT for quite some time. But even more importantly, he killed it at STCC last summer. Incredible coverage on the floor, covering panels, great reporting, great interviewing. You interviewed Todd McFarlane a few months ago. How do you do it, man? How do you keep it going? You're like a workaholic.
I love writing. I love comics, and it's just like, you know, I went to San Diego twice before writing for another outlet, so it was easier. But this time it was really a different experience because, you know, the writers and actor strike was going on, and everybody was like, "What are you going to cover?" I was like, "The comics. It's Comic-Con. Like, look, I love all the movies and TV and stuff, but comics is always my first love." So I think that really shows in my writing, and I guess people just really like what I have to say, because that's why McFarlane's folks reach out to me, and that's why the folks at LA Comic-Con reach out to me and say, "You want to cover this for you?" I was like, "Oh, hell yeah." So, yeah, I just love it.
I gotta say, I've been doing this for 12 years, and it's not often that publicity folks are like, can we, like, reaching out to writers like you and being like, can you do this work? So, like, all the power to you, man. You obviously, you're putting in the work, and you're doing quality work, too.
It also helps that I, you know, work with awesome people. It's like, you know, I read
Turn it back around.
No, for real. Like here at AIPT, at Collider, at IGN, and other sites around it, I genuinely meet awesome people and editors. So that helps as well.
That's true. You're a journeyman, too. I mean, you're doing even more writing than I might know, because I'm not necessarily looking at other sites all the time. Do you have, like, select days where you're reviewing? Like, are you reviewing, like, all Sunday? Like, how do you manage yourself?
Well, I try, you know, break it down into stuff like, again, depending on releases, stuff like Sunday or Monday, I'll do DC since they release Tuesday, and then Tuesday I'll try and get, you know, Marvel, Image, etc. And then Wednesday, Thursday is my other stuff, because I usually write movie reviews or think pieces on movies, and then Friday, I just take the day off and just do whatever.
I mean, man, you like live and breathe pop culture, but comics as well. Is there anywhere where people can find you online or anything?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, other sites I've written for include Slash Film, Collider, IGN, That Hashtag Show, and you can also find me on Instagram and Threads as CJ Writes Stuff, on the app formerly known as Twitter as CJ Writes Things. Somebody took CJ Writes Stuff.
Bastard.
I'm just like, there's another CJ out there who's also writing stuff. Do I have an evil twin I don't know about? And I also talk comics and other pop culture on TikTok as, again, CJ Writes Stuff. So if you want to see my unfiltered thoughts on movies and stuff, follow me there. And yeah, that's just where I am.
CJ may be the next Roger Ebert of comics criticism, guys. I don't know. I have my finger.
I will take it.
If you're not familiar with the AIPT Comics Podcast, this is where we recap the biggest news of the week. We review our favorite comics and have special guests on, too. This week, we have the Kill Your Darlings team, Robert Quinn, Ethan Smith, and Griffin Sheridan, to talk Kill Your Darlings. Issue 5 is coming out next week. We get deep into that. And stick around for next week. Rick Remender is our guest. We're talking all about Napalm Lullaby and his Giant Generator imprint at Image Comics. It's a really good one. But that's next week. This week in news, I would say the biggest news of the week, and usually I say what the biggest news is based on the response, is the fact that the ghostwriter will no longer be Danny Ketch or that other guy no one cares about, but the Hood. The supervillain, the Hood, is going to be the ghostwriter starting in March. Benjamin Percy is writing with Danny Kim on art. And my God, Juan Ferreira, who's been on this show before, did the design for this cover, and it is insane. We got the Hood ghostwriter combo with his iconic red cape and a gun, a double-barreled gun with a skull at the end of it. It's so sick. And then, of course, this design was by Danny Kim. You can see these designs at amptcomics.com. It is super cool. I do know that some people were furious, but this is what happens in comics news. And then there were people who were like really excited and said, "Actually, I'm not mad. This makes sense." When you saw this, CJ, what did you think? What was your first snap judgment?
I was like, this looks metal as hell. Then my second thought was, this actually makes a lot of sense. Because again, for those who may not know, Parker Robbins, aka the Hood, became one of the most reigning crime figures in Marvel's universe when he took a demon's hood and boots. And I had seen him on and off, first in the Beyond miniseries by the late great Dwayne McDuffie and Scott Collins, which was kind of like a semi-sequel to the OG Secret Wars. And then he really blew up during Brian Bendis' New Avengers when he became, super powered kingpin of crime. Because again, guys like Wilson Fisk and Hammerhead were just regular guys, but this guy was empowered by a demon, and he's also been popping up. And like the Mary Jane and Black Cat one shot, which was written by Jed McKay, who's been doing great work on that stuff. And then now, it's really cool. A character with demonic lineage taking on the Ghost Rider is fun. And like Percy said, it's a supervillain because like thing with Ketch and Blaze and Robbie Reyes, I mean, they didn't ask for it. But they also use it to do good stuff. Yeah, it's a curse. So what happens when you give the curse to somebody who is used to being cursed? That I would love to see.
Yeah, I mean, considering what Percy did with this Ghost Rider run so far, which has a ton of body horror, I'm really curious to see how hard this goes in like a horror or evil way. And if you have a supervillain behind the reins of this superhero character type, what are they going to do? Is it going to go even harder? Are we going to see even like crazier stuff? Or will the Hood be like, maybe I should be good now? I don't know. We'll see, I suppose.
Yeah, because this is a guy who is no compunction about using violence. And given how morally Percy has been on with his titles, like I have read Wolverine stuff and his Ghost Rider stuff, and I'm like, good God, how did you get away with this? So I'm just like, I'm a little excited, but also a little nervous to see, okay, now that a guy like Parker Robbins has a spirit of vengeance, what's going to happen? Is he going to go after superheroes? Is he going to go after supervillains? Is he going to try and rebuild his empire now that he's It's interesting.
A lot of potential for sure. Also in Marvel Comics news, AIPT had the exclusive chat with Cody Ziegler to talk about Spider-Punk Arms Race. Justin Mason's on art, and we actually got to exclusively reveal designs of Earth 138's Black Panther and Shuri, along with Punk Ock. So this is like a anarchy punk universe, and this is obviously a follow-up to Cody and Justin's last series, which was really cool. This is only a 4-issue series, but it appears to be doing a ton of stuff, including introducing a bunch of new characters, some of which he hasn't even revealed yet, on top of Shuri and Black Panther. And also it's funny that this book gets a subtitle. This is the second time in like 3 months that Marvel announces a book and then adds a subtitle like 2 or 3 months later, which was kind of, I don't know, interesting to me. But
it's also kind of punny since Ock is in their arms race.
Yes, exactly. Oh man, I recommend checking out the interview. It's pretty cool. We talk a little bit about spider slaying sentinels. Say that 5 times fast. I'm pretty pumped for this.
Dark sentinels, spider slaying sentinels.
They're everywhere.
There's so many different kinds of sentinels. I mean, I guess it's cool they're branching out, not hunting mutants anymore, but Jesus.
Sure. I know, right? And then we've got X-Men 90, or what is it, 78, 89? What is it?
X-Men 97.
97.
The OG series, so.
There'll be sentinels in that. It's the year of the Sentinels. Yeah. Are you pumped for Spider-Punk?
Oh my God, yeah. I read the original one from Ziegler and Mason. It was really good. Yeah. And it also helps that, Spider-Punk was a big runaway part of Across the Spider-Verse and was voiced perfection by Daniel Kaluuya, so that also helps. But it's really good because Cody's been doing really good with Miles Morales, and now we have, that. So it's also fun. Also, I love, seeing different takes on characters. I think that's the real fun. It's just like, okay, there's a Punk set. So how does, the Black Panther fit into this? And how does, other stuff fit into this? Because, it was fun to see, Punk Ironheart and Captain Anarchy. So I'm really interested to see what is brought to the table. And Justin Mason's just a really great artist. So, yeah, it's going to be fun.
It's so fascinating. If you don't know, Spider-Punk was like this background character that Olivia Coipel drew in a Dan Slott book for Spider-Verse. Just random. And then Dan Slott at the time was like, wait, who's that? And that's the creation of a character that now is expanding thanks to Cody Ziegler and Justin Mason and, you know, this world building that's happening. Like, that's kind of what makes superhero comics so neat, right? Like, we saw it with Spider-Gwen, too. Like, this cool design can shift into a really interesting and compelling character.
And I think that's what really makes the Spider-Verse concept as well as Spider-Man really fun, because it's just like, okay, how does this person's differ and how is it also the same? Because again, you know, there are going to be different twists on different villains and, you know, different other heroes and stuff. So it's really fun. And, you know, you can give depth to other characters. Like, you know, in the regular 616, Hobie Brown was the original Prowler. And now, you know, people know him as, you know, this hardcore punk rock Spider-Man. And I think that's really cool.
It's really cool, yeah. You know what else is really cool? Ultimate Spider-Man that came out this week. Man,
oh my God.
Gotta be the most anticipated comic for like every human being that reads comics for this year, I mean. Marvel was obviously really hot to trot with Ultimate because they revealed the cover to the 4th issue along with the teaser that totally gives away a huge twist in the first issue. So if you haven't read Ultimate Spider-Man #1, stop listening now, scrub ahead like a minute. But the teaser reveals Uncle Ben is alive in this alternate universe. Aunt May is dead. And the dynamic is shifted in that way, but also Peter doesn't have powers yet. Anyway, we have a cover here that shows us Green Goblin, a gray guy. I can't tell who that is. Maybe it's Tombstone of the Ultimate Universe, Mary Jane, the kids, Ben, and then there's another character that maybe Bishop? Who is that? No, that's the Captain Britain guy, maybe? I don't know.
Captain Britain.
He's got an eye patch. I think, was he in the Invasion book, that one that came out a few weeks ago?
Yes, he was also in the Ultimate Universe one-shot. So, yeah. Part of the Maker's Cabal. So
it's cool to see them revealing more stuff like this. Although I have to say, as a fan of the fact that when I read Ultimate Spider-Man, I was completely surprised by a few things. Giving it away a little too much sometimes can ruin the experience, but I don't know. There seems to be a lot of potential with this new universe.
Yeah, what hooked me about the general concept and reading the first issue is that Hickman and Shadow essentially flipped the spider dynamic, not just what Bendis and Bagley did with OG Ultimate Spider-Man, but Spider-Man in general. Because again, here's a Spider-Man who's, you know, in his 30s, married, kids, and instead of it being a total accident, he chooses, he makes that choice. So again, it's nothing like what we've seen before, and it also opens up the door. And anybody who's been reading Ultimate Invasion and, you know, Ultimate Universe knows that the maker has made it so that this is a world without heroes. So what happens now that you introduce an adult Peter Parker with an entirely different set of problems who has chosen to be Spider-Man, and, you know, how does that play out with, you know, Ben and MJ and the kids and everybody else? So that's fine. But I do agree it's kind of slapping it on there. Maybe it might get people involved, but also kind of, you know, all this stuff. Because I did not expect that.
Neither.
When Jonah comes in yelling Parker, you expect, oh, it's going to be bad. And then you turn your page, you see Ben alive, and you're just like, what the? But it works.
Right. I mean, the super fans knew that Aunt May was dead, and maybe they could have inferred that Ben was still alive, but the dynamic, too. We didn't know Ben was, you know, the managing editor at the Daily Bugle and stuff like this. There's so many interesting dynamics in play. Yeah. We're going to talk a little bit more about Ultimate Spider-Man a little later, of course. It may or may not be on the best of list. But in other Marvel Comics news, it's sort of Spider-Man related. The What If Venom series, that's going to be a 5-issue series, got a bunch of designs released on Friday, including a Venom Moon Knight, Venom She-Hulk, Venom Doctor Strange, and Venom Wolverine Hulk thing. If you go to APTcomics.com, you can, of course, see these designs. This is a series we knew was coming, written by Jeremy Holt with art by Jesus Hervas, and it starts in February. This is interesting to take the What If line and make it a series. Although, I will say the most iconic and my favorite what-ifs are usually one-shots that do an incredible amount of storytelling in 20 pages. That's one of the draws for me. It's like, I'm going to get an event-caliber story in one issue. And in this case, they're stretching it out. But I have faith in Jeremy. I think they do a really good job with all of their works. But what do you think?
I think I do agree with you, because the best what-ifs have been one-shots. I think my favorite what if is what if Spider-Man, Wolverine, Ghost Rider, and the Hulk had stayed as the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
It's a really fun way to see how they handled stuff like, the OG Infinity Gauntlet and stuff like that. And but that being said, the idea of seeing how the Venom symbiote might react to different characters is wild. Because again, if anybody has been reading Al Ewing's Venom run, they now know that Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff, has a symbiote, and this is a character who's, a spy, used espionage, so she has a different way of using it than Peter Parker might. So it's just like, how does, Mark Spector, who, was died and was brought back to life, be handled with a symbiote? How does Stephen Strange, who, is a master of mystic arts, handle that? And it's that'll be the fun. I'm just generally curious to see how that turns out with different characters. So that's fun.
I wonder if this is because I always think about this because of the MCU and Sony and stuff. Like, are they putting this out now so that when the collection's on the shelves, Venom #3 comes out in theaters? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It could be a fun thing because people could be like, it could be fun because people could be like, I liked Venom, here's stuff. So synergy is a double-edged sword sometimes. It's just like, it's fun because, you can piggyback off that, but it's just like, do you have the concept? Can you keep this going? And again, I think back to when the first Venom movie, because that's when Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman dropped their Venom comic, and it was just really, really good. So that's a good case of it. So but I will give it a chance because I'd like to see the idea of Moon Knight as Venom probably.
I wonder what Khonshu will think of that. Probably like it because he likes.
And poor Mark, because again, the man has.
Oh my God, he's got voices in his head. Now he's got another one. That's true.
Exactly, because it's like there's Jake Lockley, there's Stephen Grant, there's Khonshu, and now there's this slimy alien thing. Oh, good God!
Holy crap! You could do a whole series with Moon Knight as Venom. That'd be so cool.
Right. So that's.
I'm gonna put you up. I'm gonna call Marvel right now. CJ's got to write this one. He's got the right idea.
Oh my God, that would be. I wouldn't hate it. I would love. Moon Knight is literally on the characters I would love to write.
Speaking of synergy, and you said that maybe 2 minutes ago, Rise of the Powers of X, #4, and Fall of the House of X, #4. Cover art and solicits were released on Friday. These are two synergizing books that are leading us to the end of the Age of Krakoa. And we're going to talk a little bit about it. Obviously, we don't have a ton of information because these solicits are quite scant on details, although one of the details is, who is Trader X? Is it what is that character that Rob Liefeld created? Major X, was it?
Major X? Maybe
it's Major X? Could you imagine how mad fans would be if Major X was introduced as the killer of the Krakoa Age?
Oh my God! Given how Liefeld has reacted to all the books, that would be way too on the nose.
The fan reaction to these was minimal. I don't know. I think people are they're getting a little cool on this. I know Rise of the Powers of X #1 there was an incredible review on AIPT by a writer that is on this Zoom right now. But also, I know Fall of the House of X. People are a little lukewarm on that one comparatively. I think Kieran Gillen has a lot more to work with with the story he's telling. And obviously it's touching back to Hawks and Pox stuff as well in a deep way, which is compelling. Are you excited for Rise of the Powers of X #4?
Oh, yeah. Definitely, because that's touching on a lot of the future stuff that was set up in Powers of X with the Dominion and Mutant Pride fighting their last stand. So, yeah. But I will say, I did mention in my review, I do feel like it would have, Fall and Power and Rise would be a little stronger if Gillen had tackled them both. Because, again, Hickman did Hoxpox, and it was, great to see. And then Percy did X Lives Excess Wolverine, which was kind of, great and intertwined. Yeah. And again, this is no shade to Jerry Dugan, but I think he is working on a different level from Gillen. And Gillen and Ewing have been the two writers I feel have been on the same wavelength as Hickman. I don't know. It kind of feels like something is a little out of sync because, again, Hotspots and X Lives XF, they were kind of intertwined. So I'm just like, where's the ties there? But things could change, especially given if they both set things up. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I don't think Jerry Dugan's a bad writer at all. I just think he's really good at like superhero kind of like tropes in these stories. And Gillen and Ewing tend to do these like, I don't know, thought-provoking, sci-fi weirdness stuff that somehow works and also ties into the history of everything. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because what was I going to say? Hickman, I think, in an interview talked about how his stuff is layers. Like you should go layer after layers, and I think Gillen and Ewing are on because, like in Immortal Thor, Ewing is doing a story about the power of myth, and when Gillen did Judgment Day, it was like, how does mankind and superhero kind work to be worthy of living?
Right, and morality, and really interesting concepts that like elevate it a little bit.
Exactly, and I'm not against big superhero smash ups. Like again, part of why I like reading Predator versus Wolverine, because it was exactly
let loose.
I think what's worked with Krakoa is it's digging into these deeper themes. So I think that's what Gillen's doing great.
For sure, yeah. Switching gears to some indie comics news. It was revealed that Daniel Warren Johnson's Transformers is getting a new series artist. Jorge Corona's taking over. And I think this is cool news. Obviously, Daniel Warren Johnson can't draw every issue forever. If you listen to interviews or hear artists talk about their work schedules, most can't do more than 6 issues in an entire year. And if they did, they will kill themselves. It's literally bad for their bodies. So makes total sense to me that Jorge Corona's taking over. I know some fans might be a little disappointed because I don't know how you top Daniel Warren Johnson's incredible suplex-style fight scenes with giant robots. But I think it's a pretty even match in a sense because Corona has like a kind of cartoony style that suits, I think, Transformers.
Yeah, because it's like Johnson's still writing the book, so he'll still shape it. But Corona's artwork, I think he did a few variant covers. It feels more in line with the original animated series, so I think it'll still have those vibes. And again, I like the shifting of artists for different arcs because that's a nice, fun way to shake up the thing and separate the books. So it should definitely be fun, especially I don't know, given how this last issue ended, and I'm sure we're going to talk more about it. I'm just like, how does what's next for this second arc? Because
I think you're right. It's better than just having a fill-in artist because when you sit down to read the trade paperback, it's not going to be like, oh, look at this art. Wait, what the hell? Oh wait, it's back. Now Corona gets to do his own arc, and obviously it gives Johnson more time. IDW pleased Ninja Turtle fans this week by revealing that they re-upped with Paramount so they can continue to make Ninja Turtle comics. They didn't say how many years this new contract is. I would be fascinated to know if it was like 2 years and we'll see, or is it 10 years, 20 years? Like, is it so long that it won't even matter like to the average fan? Obviously, Ninja Turtles has been at IDW for quite some time now, so it makes sense for them to stay. Although, of course, IDW lost the Transformers and G.I. Joe license about a year or two ago now. So I think there probably was some nervousness from some fans thinking maybe go to Skybound. But I think this is good news in some sense. And obviously, Kevin Eastman, the co-creator of Ninja Turtles, was happy with it too. Yeah,
because IDW had been doing licensed stuff, like their entire thing was built on license, but then, Transformers and G.I. Joe went over to Skybound, and now Dark Horse is doing Star Wars themed books again, so pretty much Star Trek and Turtles are their big draws.
And My Little Pony, don't ever forget My Little Pony, because that's everyone's
How can I forget My Little Pony? Exactly. But but I will say that I have been enjoying the direction that IDW took with it. Like way back when it first started, I was like, this is really, really good. And then you have stuff like The Last Ronin, and then the Saturday Morning Cartoons, which does the 1987.
Such a no-brainer idea. They should have done that 10 years ago.
Exactly. So there's different permeations of Turtles, because that's the fun. I have literally grown up with every permeation of Turtles. When I was a kid, it was the 1987 ones. When I was a teenager, 23, 2K3. When I was in college, the 2012, and then the 2014 movies, and now Mutant Mayhem and IDW stuff. So the concept is really eternal, and the fact that Eastman is there, and you've got Tom Waltz, Sophie Campbell, and everybody else. It's really, really good. So, yeah, here's hoping that however long it lasts, that we get some more good stuff out of it.
Speaking of Sophie Campbell, they will be writing the 150th issue with Vincenzo Federici drawing. IDW revealed some details about this. It's a 68-page extra-sized issue, and celebrating turtles and all the developments that's happened in the IDW story. They have a really cool front and back cover with a ton of characters in there, and a lot of them are only in the comics, so it's kind of a cool celebration of Turtles comics, and longtime fans, I'm sure, are going to get a lot of payoff from that.
Yeah, because it's been going on since 2011, I believe, so that's like a decade and some change, and there's been a lot of stuff. There's been characters that have lived. There have been the dynamics of the Turtles have been shaken out. They've introduced a new Ninja Turtle with Jenica. So yeah, it's been a lot. Like it's rare, especially from with the big two and Image having more finite endings for a comic to go on as long as it has. But
yeah, true.
It's pretty amazing. And honestly, the only other big licensed property comic I can think of that's done this is Boom Studios' Power Rangers, because that's it's rare, but it's really fun, and Campbell had done a great job, because I remember when Waltz left the book, I was like, oh God, what's going to happen now? But Campbell said they did a great job, and can't wait to see how it all ends.
It's crazy to think, when we're like 80, Turtles will be around so long, it'll be as long as when Superman is for us now, maybe-ish. I don't know how time works. But there'll be kids that are 12 that'll be like, oh, Ninja Turtles is so old. Man, that was around the last century. Speaking of old, well, kind of old, DC is re-releasing Prez, Setting a Dangerous President, for the U.S. 2024 elections, it appears. This is a 2016 title from Mark Russell and Ben Caldwell. And, DC released this news saying straight up, this is because it's an election year. Knowing Mark Russell's work, who is so good at satire and so good at, drawing out truths in our own lives, but with soups usually, I think this is a great time to revisit this book. It was a great series when it came out all those years ago, and it's kind of cool that they're doing this. I saw Mark Russell, he took up the AIPT news and tweeted out that he's surprised that it's back in publication. He actually thought it would be buried forever. Maybe because it's too political, I'm not sure. But yeah, I really can't wait for this new edition. It's going to have a new short story and some bonus materials too.
I will definitely check it out, because I've liked Russell's work with Rumpus Room at AWA, and he also wrote Fantastic Four Life Story, which was really good. And then I believe the Snugglepuss, which was surprisingly good. So definitely worth a read. And again, timely publishing is good. So worth checking.
We need more political comics, I guess.
Exactly, more political satire.
And then Dark Horse came out with the news that there's a new true crime graphic novel, Dr. Worthless, The Man Who Studied Murder, is coming out in the summer of 2024. It's by the same creative team that Did You Hear What Eddie Gein Done? It's by Harold Schechter and Eric Powell, from Goon, if you're a Goon fan. Obviously, these two worked great together because they're doing another true crime book only a few years after the last one. I'm not familiar with this true crime, and it's so interesting to me. True crime is so popular in podcast world, and we're seeing more and more true crimey kind of shows and movies and stuff. So it's nice to see it kind of permeate comics and see how well it does.
Yeah, and this is, again, Dr. Frederick Wortham, who wrote a whole book about why comic books were bad and stuff like that. And also looking at the description, it's just okay, this could be fun. It's just an actual complex portrait of this guy and seeing, what was going on in his head. So that at least is worth it.
The subtitle is "It Nearly Killed the Comics Industry." So
I'm just oh damn! Putting out a comic book about the guy who nearly killed the comic, that is wild. But I approve. I love it. I love the.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. As a comics fan, it'll be interesting to see how that weaves into our own knowledge of comics history. Speaking of comics history, though, Universal and Skybound have already put out a Universal Monsters book. It was Dracula by James Tynion and Martin Simmons. And they revealed on Friday a new one, Creature from the Black Lagoon. It's written by Dan Waters, Ram V, with art by Matthew Roberts. And there's a preview on AFPTcomics.com if you want to go check that out. I think this is a great follow-up to Dracula. Why not, right? I think the Creatures from the Black Lagoon hasn't gotten enough play, honestly. Obviously, Guillermo del Toro did a kind of creature fishman thing.
The Shape of Water is the unofficial sequel to that movie, and no one can tell me otherwise.
Yes, exactly. And you know, it's a creepy looking character, and you know, with global warming and water rising, why not have more Gilliman creatures that's grabbing our
Plus,
impulse?
the fun fact is that this is actually a sequel to the original film, so it's kind of picking up like years after the original film, and that's really fun. So this technically is an official sequel to the original movie, and I love that because the Creature from the Black Lagoon is like one of my top 3 favorite movie monsters, right next to the Yajuta from Predator and Freddy Krueger.
Yeah. The design was great. He looked creepy. I mean, he looked really stiff too. But I mean, come on, it was that. when did that movie come out? Like 1950 or something? 1940?
Yeah, 1950. Yes, yeah, 1940 or something. But yeah, it was really fun because it felt really different. It was, most of them were either what's the monster like cursed or brought to life. And here's this thing that's probably been around, and there's that. Del Toro talked about there was a romantic undercurrent between the monster and the girl, and he took home that make whole movie out. So that would be fun to see how they do that because, again, I know people bring up the Dark Universe.
Yes,
like,
Universal was actually a series of movies that were in the same universe. Yeah.
And it flopped hard with the Tom Cruise movie. But this feels like the antithesis of that. It feels like they're actually, taking actual thought into that. And I really like it. And I really hope my fingers are crossed that the next one is the Wolfman because I'm a big fan.
That would make sense.
But yeah, this is really awesome.
Yeah, maybe they keep the Mummy like last just because that, like you said, that movie didn't quite work.
Sophia Boutella needs to fire her agent.
Yeah, that's true. That's it for news. In our next segment, Top Books of the Week, we're going to talk about our top 2 favorite comics out this week. My second favorite book of the week was Sensational She-Hulk #4 by Rainbow Rowell and Ig Guerra. This book continues to be incredibly well acted and real, deeply real. This issue, so the last 2 issues, I was a little down in my reviews because it was basically like a sort of stretched out She-Hulk meets Hulk in the city kind of story. It was still good, but it didn't hammer home like She-Hulk's day job, how she's like struggling to like keep that going. Her romantic relationship wasn't in the last 2 issues, and now it's back in this issue, and it's just hitting all cylinders as far as relationship, day job, being a superhero. Her friend Hellcat shows up and adds all this chaos, and we also have Captain Marvel popping up, and all of these elements are just, they're moving, they're flowing, and I think Rainbow Rowell is so good at dialogue, and it all comes together so beautifully in the fourth issue. And yeah, it continues to have a sense of humor about itself, and it continues to have like a very like realistic take on heroes. Like I keep saying this in my reviews too, like Marvel's all about the world outside your window, right? And there are a lot of books that doesn't feel like that. Like Empire, for instance, like these global, world-shattering alien invasions, whatever. But in this case, it very much so is that world outside your window, and I think Rainbow Rowell is really good at that, and really humanizing characters that sometimes are incredibly not humanized because they're like monsters or whatever. Yeah, so glad to see this is as good as the first issue of this new run, and yeah, go check it out if you like great character acting and character moments.
Awesome. I will definitely have to check it out.
But what was your second favorite book of the week?
So for me, there was one of my picks was Action Comics 1061 by Jason Aaron and John Timms, which kicks off the Superman Superstars because apparently all this year DC is going to get its best talent to do Superman stories, and this one is pretty fun because it's tackling Bizarro and doing a new twist on it. I always felt that Superman has had a really good rogues gallery, but I don't think they are more utilized because you will be lucky if you get something that doesn't have Lex Luthor or General Zod, especially in the movie. Then I get it, but this has been like they've done like in the recent stuff they've done good stuff with Metallo and over in Josh Williamson's Superman. They did big parasite creepy. And now with this story, Jason Aaron is literally making Bizarro the opposite of Superman by having him, power up using magic. And I was like, that's actually genius.
Right. Yeah,
right,
that's
exactly.
Superman's biggest weakness,
like, people
right?
forget about magic. I would like a story explaining why magic is Superman's biggest weakness, but that's another thing. And it's just, what struck me, I read the interview with Aaron on the site, and he talked about how Bizarro is a tragic figure.
Yeah.
And I really think, because if going to the opposite thing, like Superman has been lucky. Like his pod landed in Smallville and he was raised by the Kents. Then he grows up, meets Lois Lane, falls in love, and then he turns out to have this whole other family, Supergirl, Superboy, Crypto the Superdog. Like he has this whole support network of friends and family, and people love it. He's the superhero. In contrast, Bizarro is, often, revved off this dumb thing, and then it turns out in this thing, he's lost Bizarro. He can't find his way home. So that's adding tragedy to a villain and making them very deep. And John Timms draws the heck out of it. Like, again, his whole thing is a stunning contrast. When Bizarro shows up, it's all dark and washed out, and he looks, like he's carved out of a rock. When Superman appears, it's beautiful two-way shred, where he's flying over Metropolis, everything's shining, and that's big, bright, and it makes it good. It's like, this is good, it's good work. Plus, it lives up to the exactly. Just juxtaposition. It's good. You're doing a character that are opposites. It's good to have that juxtaposition. Plus, it lives up to the actual comic saying. Bizarro literally punches Superman and Supergirl. It's that Jason Aaron. Why I love him is that he is a guy who will go like to the extremes with art. Like when he was working at Marvel, he had I keep thinking. I think the one thing I summed up was Astonishing Spider-Man Wolverine, to stop the fusion of Doctor Doom and Ego, the Living Planet, shoots a gun that has a bullet infused with the Phoenix Force. That insanity is why I love comics, and he's bringing that. So,
Yeah, well said. Yeah. You referenced the interview, which we played on the podcast mid-December, and my favorite part of that interview was when he was like, I asked him, is it hard to write Bizarro dialogue? And he was like, yeah. And he was like, in fact, when I was writing Yoda at Marvel, he was so hard that he would write normal dialogue, and then the Lucasfilm people would be like, you do know Yoda talks backwards, right? And he'd be like, yeah, I know. It's just impossible for me to like keep the logic of the language. I'm right there with you. Action Comics is really good. It's really cool that DC is also giving big-time writers like this a crack at story arcs rather than giving the reins to one person for a year, which isn't bad either, but it's cool to see Jason Aaron get to do a Superman story like this.
Yeah, definitely, because I've been loving Batman Off-World, and he mentioned that he had wanted to write Superman for years, so it's good. And definitely looking forward to what other folks do. I want to tell you straight up, Dave, when I was reading this, I was like, I was tempted to write my entire review in Bizarro speak, but then I'd be like, no, they probably think I was actually trashing the book when I liked it.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Well, like Aaron said in the interview, like you can't really do only Bizarro dialogue because it just confuses the reader, and what are you even doing at that point? So I get why you wouldn't go that route, but that would be really fun, clever way. I always love it when reviewers do something crazy, like I think Pitchfork once, their whole review was a video of a monkey peeing in its own mouth, which was obviously really rude, but what a bold idea. We would never do that at AFPT, though. Well, maybe we would. I don't know, if we're bored. Moving on to my favorite book of the week. Probably no surprise to anyone. I've been a Spider guy forever. I reviewed every issue of Superior Spider-Man, and I loved Ultimate Spider-Man #1 by Jonathan Hickman and Marco Cicchetto. My expectations were tempered. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, and I was pleasantly surprised by some really interesting new character dynamics, particularly J. Jonah Jameson and Uncle Ben. Sorry, we already spoiled it earlier. Maybe I should have told it again to spoiler warning. But they are like friends, co-workers. I don't quite know exactly how close they are as friends, but we get to see JJJ be like a father figure to Peter, which was really fascinating. And meanwhile, Uncle Ben is kind of colder. He's almost like that father figure type that doesn't want to hug his son. Whereas JJ, he actually takes his tie off and he's like very caring. He puts on his tie for Peter. He puts it on him and ties it. It's like, that is such a cool idea to show the emotional connection in a really interesting and efficient way. Almost as if you would, this is the kind of idea you'd see in a movie because, you know, you only have so much time in screenplays and in comics. So being efficient like that is a great touchstone. And that's just one little moment. Mary Jane is back. She's with Peter. So many fans are just so happy about that. And I'm just really excited about this new world where heroes were essentially wiped out or prevented from being created. And now it's 20 years later. Heroes, so if this was the Marvel Universe, it would be 20 years into the career of heroes that aren't around. How does that change the dynamic? How does that interact with this world that has this master control of villains? And now we have a Peter Parker that's 40 with powers. Is he going to, like, slip and fall off the, like, roof when he first tries to swing? Like, there's so much potential here. And you can totally see that in this first issue, which is exercised, and it gives a lot as far as character. Obviously, it's like lacking a little bit in action, but I don't think we're there yet. Did you like this issue, CJ?
I loved it. Like I would have been interested because now that you think about it, Hickman has pretty much now tackled all the big stuff. He started out with Fantastic Four, then went to Avengers, then of course, you know, did Hawkspox and the Krakoan Age with X-Men, and now he's doing Spider-Man. So he's done all the big pillars of Marvel. But I also love that he's, you know, taking a human approach. Like, it's like Peter says it best in the issue. He's like, I've had a good life. You know, I've married to the woman I love. I have 2 kids. Everything's good, but I felt like something was missing. And then we learned that, you know, something was missing. Like, he was meant to be one of the greatest heroes of this world. And the Maker stole his future. I love that thing, that last page, or second to last page, where Iron Lad, the young Tony Stark's like, these people stole your future from you. Do you want it back? And then Peter's like, I want it. Because, again, I love that this is a Spider-Man who chose to be Spider-Man. So that
yes. And yeah, and then what does that do? Well, what is that? How does that change his dynamic? You know, like, what is he thinking? It's different.
Exactly, it's different. Also, Marco Checchetto is just an amazing artist because, like, I've been following his stuff.
God.
Like,
so good.
Like, he did a Star Wars comic that was a prequel to The Force Awakens, and Luke Skywalker looks amazing. Of course, he did great work with Daredevil. And
hyper realistic, yeah.
Yeah, it's hyper realistic and very detailed and something I've noticed, he likes to draw characters with beards. When we did Punisher, Frank Castle had a beard. We did Daredevil, beard. I'm just like, who are you going to give a beard next to? Give Scott Summers a beard. Cyclops would look great with a beard.
Oh man, he would. That's funny.
Yeah. It looks amazing. It's very well written. It's a very good kickoff, and it sets this tone of, this is a world that is slowly reclaiming the heroes it's lost. And it makes me so excited for Ultimate Black Panther next month. So yeah,
yes, Brian Edward Hill. I think he'll kill it too.
He's been killing it on Blade, so
I know, right? And he was off superhero stuff for a while, so it's cool to see him back too. If you go back and listen to the Chip Zdarsky Spotlight episode we did in October, we talk a little bit about Marco, and I at the time, Chip was like, Marco only wants to draw Spider-Man. He's one of the best artists to ever draw Spider-Man. And I think back now and I go, he knew that Marco was going to draw this book because I don't think anyone knew at the time. It wasn't revealed yet because New York Comic Con it was revealed. And I'm like, I think back to that, I'm like, he knew that and he didn't say anything. What a great guy.
Met him at LA Comic Con. He was a phenomenal guy.
He's so great. And that interview is like 1:30, and he probably would have went like 3 hours if I wanted to, but I don't like taking too much of guest time usually. But yeah, no, it's a great talk, and I just talking to him a couple times now on just Zoom, it's great. I can't imagine meeting him in real life too.
Really good dude.
But what is your favorite book of the week, though?
My personal favorite book of the week was Rise of the Powers of X, issue 1 by Kieran Gillen, R.B. Silva, David Curiel, and Clayton Cowles. Because, again, I had been following the Krakoa era since House of X and Powers of X, and I wanted to see how, and this issue felt like a deliberate mirror to Powers of X issue 1, both the setting as well as, certain panels as well as, just how it shows the X-Men will continue to fight. Like, there are so many great moments in there. There's Mystique and Gambit have a big heart. They're just like, Mystique's like, I kind of actually liked you. You made my daughter happy. I was like, huh, Mystique actually has a heart. Who knew?
Yep.
But also, it also, the revelation with Professor X thinking about, going back in time to try and change everything. It's just like, it kind of shows the double-edged sword as Charles Xavier. Yes, he loves being kind and wants to protect it, but he will often sometimes go to just extremes to do it. And I'm just like, dude, this is the same thinking that led you to mind wipe Xavier, and that led to Onslaught. It's just like, you're thinking about things. Stop and think.
Yeah. Or like how him and Magneto put Moira in that like cage, basically. So immoral.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's all about the greater good, I guess.
Yeah, it's just like, this is kind of like I've always liked when Cyclops or somebody else is in charge, because they just like kind of strike that thing. It's just like, yes, you can walk. Yeah, it's just.
I mean, let's go back to the beginning when Professor X was like, I like Jean Grey. She's so cute. And she was like 12.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell? That set up all kinds of warning bells. You read these old comics, you're just like, oh my God, why?
Oh, man, don't read like early Fantastic Four. Like, Reed is such a sexist. It's kind of hilarious. But corrected now for the modern age.
Thank God. But I did love the updated X-Men. Like, Sync was kind of the Professor X figure.
Yeah.
And Kamala Khan was Captain Krakoa.
That was neat. Yeah.
And Iron Man being a fusion of, armor and stuff. And I think Shadow Tiger, because I am a huge Kate Pride stan. So seeing her literally take on Apocalypse powers was amazing.
It's a cool idea, too.
I was like, that got me thinking, if this was modern day and Pucks made her into one of his horsemen, which one would she be? And I thought maybe Famine? I don't know, because usually it's Carezza. I just
Famine makes sense, because when she phases, it's like she's empty.
Yeah, exactly, and it disrupts them. It disrupts them. But yeah.
Hey, I have a question for you.
Arby Silva, who illustrated Powers of X, was a great.
You can't compete with that. Yeah.
Like when the Dominion shows up, that was a big screen-worthy moment.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So good, so good.
When it comes to also Miss Marvel. It's a secret as far as like what her mutant power is. Did this reveal that at all? I can't remember.
It did not reveal it. I mean, she still had her base powers, so I'm going to guess that it's going to be for the Mutant Menace miniseries that's coming up soon. But I'm still surprised that I truly am not a fan of the fridging that led to this. But generally, the whole integrating Kamala into the X stuff has actually been fairly smoother than I expected. And I'm generally curious to see how this all works out, and if she will still be with the X-Men going on whatever post-Krakoa is.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, Rise was really good, and I am generally interested to see how all this mucking about changes things, or it doesn't change things, or it sets up what's to come next. But yeah, it was really good slice of sci-fi superheroics, which is my jam. So yeah.
Yeah, that big sci-fi epicness that we saw in Powers of 10, I think, kind of returned here, and that really worked, for sure. Nice pick, man.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next segment, Standout.
Go!
Moment of the week. My God, the echo worked. it amped it up.
I'm in a big room, so.
This is where we talk about our favorite panel or page from any comic book out this week. It's basically our chance to glow about some cool art we saw and some fight scenes. I really liked a scene from Transformers #4 by Daniel Warren Johnson. Man, the fight stuff in this is insane. Because when you think about the scale of these like 5-story tall robots that probably weigh 500 tons, and in this page, which you can see on APTcomics.com on this podcast post, we have a Transformer getting the legs swept out from them by a car. They fall, and then we get to see Optimus drive over their face with a very satisfying crunch. My God, the energy of this page is so cool. The use of color, too, with the yellow at the top, the blue at the bottom. It's like it's hot, it's fast, it's energetic, and then at the bottom, cold and dead. It's like, oh my God, it's like the smashing blow. And you get that from the color story, let alone everything else in between. And yeah, I just love this page. There's so many moments in this book that could be a Kapow moment too.
Yeah, it's a whole book full of Kapow moments, and you feel that weight because again, he said his best. There's two giant robots trying to kill each other, and you feel the impact of that. I guess my Kapow moment would be, again, surprising nobody, Ultimate Spider-Man #1, the revelation that Uncle Ben was alive. Because I had known reading Ultimate Universe that Aunt May was dying, so I was just like, okay, how does that affect Peter? Because again, I've always said if Peter learned about responsibility from his Uncle Ben, Aunt May is where he gets his heart and his drive to help people.
Right.
And having her around, that definitely was a change. But the big wham, because again, I was thinking when Jonah comes in, he's yelling, Parker! He centers up. But then he stops, says, hey, Pete. And I was like, huh. And I was like, Parker? And I was like, who else is Parker? Was it I'm going to be real with you, given how I was expecting his dad, Richard Parker, to be.
Oh, sure. That's a possibility, yeah.
But that big wham, and I was like, I should have seen this coming, but also it works. And a funny thing, I was talking with my best friend, Lance, who is a big comic fan, and he's like, did Giacchetto draw Ben in a way that reminds you of Neil Adams? And I was like,
interesting.
I kind of see that. I kind of see that. I kind of see it. I actually, I kind of see it. I actually met the man, and he kind of has that Uncle Ben flavor. So that was really, really cool. I don't know if it was intentional on Hickman and Giachetto's part. That was really good. But that was the biggest wham moment in a book that turns the Spidey mythos on the table. But yeah,
it was surprising too because I don't think Uncle Ben was ever a writer or editor in any mythos. So it's like you wouldn't expect him to have that job, but I guess for some reason he went that route in this universe.
Yeah. It's like you mentioned. It's fun that the Daily Bugle is taking such a central part.
I'm so surprised by that.
The journalist, I love that, but also it's just shows how much this was a part of Peter's life because he kind of supported him. And it's a new, fresh way of doing it.
It's such a smart idea too. With the way the politics are these days and how we're always looking at the news cycle. It seems why not make that the central focus of the good guys and bad guys, as we learn a little bit later.
Especially now we know that there is an actual conspiracy by the maker and his cabal to,
Right.
It's going to be fun.
Oh, I can't wait for more of that, yeah. Moving on to our next segment, top books for next week. We're going to talk about our most anticipated comic out next week. Oh my God, there are a lot of really good #1s coming out. I was very excited that you picked this one because I already got to review it. There's an advanced review going up tomorrow on Monday. What is your most anticipated book of the week?
My most anticipated book of the week is Cobra Commander issue 1 by Joshua Williamson and Andrea Milana. I never thought I would say this.
I know, right?
I read Duke last year, and I was like, this is really good. This feels like a very cool spy throw instead of a G.I. Joe thing. And they made you feel Duke as a character. So now the shoe is on the other foot. How is Williamson going to write, this terrorist mastermind, especially in a world where giant robots and advanced technology? So that will definitely be fun. And I've seen the preview pages, and it definitely looks a lot more bloodier than Duke was because Cobra Commander just straight up murders a guy. And I was like, that's
blood splatter,
And going back to the Rise of X, Rise of the Powers of X and Fall of Powers of X, this kind of feels similar to that, and that Williamson's writing two sides of a story because you know how the guy who's leading G.I. Joe and the guy who's leading Cobra, and it's just how do they react to the fact that things have changed? So that'll be fun to see.
Yeah, Duke is completely shocked by the fact that there are sentient giant robots that can turn into fighter jets. What will Cobra Commander think when he learns about Energon, energy, whatever? I always say
Energon.
And giant robots as well. And I can only imagine he's going to be like, I can use this.
Yes. Use this for the legions of Cobra!
Oh my God, that voice. I'm not going to spoil a thing. I got to review it already. It is really good. Some interesting world building that Duke doesn't do. So Williamson has said in a few interviews that Cobra Commander's his favorite character. So I think there's a little bit more love in this book in that regard. Anyway, I'll say no more. But my most anticipated book of the week is Avengers Twilight #1 by Daniel Acuna and Chip Zdarsky. I got to read it a week ago, and it's really good. I think people are going to really... Acuna can't miss, man. And
Oh, yeah.
We're doing a story where Cap is much older and in a world that doesn't really care about him. They think he's, old history. And what does that mean? And are there conspiracies going on? And what's going on with Tony Stark's tech? Some interesting questions. And, Chip's not missed on these like alternate reality what-if style stories. I don't know if this is in canon. Maybe it will be, but probably not. It's probably its own thing. So yeah, I'm really excited for folks to check this one out. It's solid stuff.
Oh yeah, because he did a great job of Spider-Man Life Story, and then he did Marvel 2-in-1, which showed a few different features, which was fun. So I definitely like that because also I've loved Daniel Cunha's work when he did. I mean, you mentioned Remender, and it's ironic because Uncanny Avengers was when I first saw his work, and I was like, "Ooh, this is really awesome." Because he gave all the X-Men different upgrades, and it was really cool. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he does that. And again, the idea of taking Steve Rogers, the man out of time, and doing that, but now he's in the future.
Yes,
he's kind of,
it's inverted.
Well, that is a really good concept. I really cannot wait to read it because, again, Starsky has done great work in all of his books, and it looks gorgeous. Yeah.
I don't know how Zdarsky has the time. He's freaking doing 2 Batman books a month on top of this now, and then the other stuff he did, the Howard the Duck one-shot. Man, it's crazy. Also crazy, our picks for Judging by the Cover Junior, our favorite cover art out next week. I love the Wonder Woman #5 cover by Daniel Sampere. This is the main cover, and I'm always a fan of these absence of, I don't know what you call it, absence of color. Oh, no, wait.
Negative space.
Negative space, thank you. We've got the Wonder Woman's red bodice kind of bleeding into the star behind her. It's really cool how it's framed with the star, too, because we've got 3 different things going on, 3 different enemies, too. We've got the new villain, we've got the kind of soldier kind of guy, commander guy that's after her, and then we have the Capitol. And if you've been reading Wonder Woman, you know that politics is a big part of this. The U.S. government is against Wonder Woman. They want to take her out thanks to these evil powers that be that are manipulating our government into thinking she is an enemy. So yeah, really interesting themes. Sampere's art is super detailed. I love how he draws Wonder Woman too. She's, it's not like this exploitive thing at all. She looks muscular. She looks tall and big like an Amazon would be. And yeah, it's just really iconic looking. I mean, I could see this as like a cool t-shirt even, which is always a good sign when a cover works.
Oh yeah, definitely. If you could slap it on the wall, it works.
Exactly. Well, yours is very poster worthy as well.
Yeah, I pick is the upcoming James Bond 007 by Dave Johnson, and I just love how this thing looks. You have Bond staring you down, his gun is pointed, and you see the laser sight, but then you also see in the background this big missile, as well as, a circle with a hammer and sickle, and then in the foreground of that, you see Bond running as people shoot. It kind of reminds me a lot of how the Bond title sequences work, how you have all these different images, fading out into each other, and I keep imagining Etc. represents James Bond 007 in whatever this is. Because again, seeing Garth Ennis, a writer I've been up and down on over the years, should be interesting. I'm just like, this is going to be an up or a down for me. But James Bond should feel big and bold, and I love that the Dynamite comics have kind of tapped into that more brutal edge from Fleming's original novels. So I'm just like, that should be a good balance. So, but yeah, this definitely looks like a movie poster.
It does, yeah. I love like the circles that are like going around the gun. It's like really drawing your eye down that barrel, and then the laser.
You know what just remind me of? It's kind of like it's kind of like an artistic take on the gun barrel sequences that open it.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, that was very clever on Johnson's part.
Johnson's a great cover artist. So good. It's unfortunate that just a little business side of things. There's some cover artists there that would be amazing interior artists, but there's just not enough money in it because they can put out more covers and make more money than if they were to do an entire sequential story, which is a little unfortunate, but it's the world we live in, I guess.
Necessarily. I would have loved to see Kale Nagu, who does like a bunch of graphic that do stuff, but I get it.
Yeah. Nice pick, dude. Moving on to our last segment, join us as the Kill Your Darlings entire creative team. Robert Quinn, Ethan Smith, Griffin Sheridan, join us, talk all about Kill Your Darlings. #5's out next week. And CJ, you've reviewed a few of the issues. You've liked it, yeah?
Yes. The entire concept was kind of like, intrigued me. Like a general fantasy world gone wrong is definitely fun, but what also intrigued me is how each issue opens. There's like there are different sequences that leap forward in time, usually showing a young girl, and something horrible happens. And I have to assume it's all tied to what is going on in the protagonist Rose's life, because again, the issue starts with her in her fantasy world, and then it ends with her house being burnt to the ground. So you're just like, what happens? But yeah. It was definitely it's definitely been a good thing. I've been loving what KLC Press has been doing. Vanish, very good. Yeah. Schlub, funny, and now this. I'm just like, what's gonna come next? But yeah.
And we'll find out when we talk to the guys in a second. So guys, thanks for being on the podcast for the second time.
Oh my gosh, I know we couldn't stay away.
Yes, thank you for having us.
You know, this is actually the 14th time you guys have asked to be on again, and I finally relented, and I had to have you on. No,
it's become a daily thing.
Because I'm a regular listener, you know, and it's like when we're not on, I really feel like we're missing.
I need to hear my own voice.
Yeah. This is the content that people want. It's just the three of us. You know what? We're going to start our own podcast. We need you guys.
Do it.
Do it. Well, I will listen.
That's not a bad idea.
Well, first of all, congratulations on Kill Your Darlings doing so well. I know it's gotten second printings. We have the 5th issue out January 27th next week, just a couple days from now. I got a chance to read the next 2 issues, and I think fans are going to really love where you go with it. No spoilers. I was taken aback a lot, and we'll get into it a little bit as you'll find out in a moment when we start asking questions. But for those unacquainted with Kill Your Darlings, those bastards out there who haven't picked it up yet and bought every variant cover, could you give them a quick elevator pitch to catch them up?
All right, yeah. Let me stretch these old muscles that I haven't quite done since the book launched in September. Kill Your Darlings. For us. Yeah. I'm not okay. I got it, Ethan. Calm down, Ethan. Kill Your Darlings is a new fantasy epic coming out of Image Comics, written by myself. I'm Griffin Sheridan, and Ethan S. Parker, and art by the incredible Bob Quinn, who's joining us today. And letters and design by John J. Hill, who is not with us, but he does incredible work on the book. And it follows a little girl named Rose, who has a very active imagination. I like to say that she's the J.R.R. Tolkien of 8-year-olds, so she's got maps and character designs and lore to this world that she likes to play pretend in, like with her stuffed animals and everything after school. But in the real world, things aren't super great. Her mother, Andrea, is kind of drowning in bills and maybe some other things that we're not totally sure about. But one day, something goes very, very wrong in the fantasy world, and that evil starts sort of leaking out into the real world, and there's some terrible, devastating things that happen at the end of issue 1 that propel us on this adventure to, I don't know, save the fantasy world, save the real world, save Rose from whatever this ancient evil is. And while we're doing that, we're also tracking another young lady through seemingly hundreds and hundreds of years of terrible events. And how is she connected to Rose? Find out and Kill Your Darlings.
Wow.
All right, that was fine. I have notes.
Okay.
We can talk after the show.
Maybe do like an X-Men animated series like previously on.
Oh, yeah.
That's good.
Totally.
That's good.
No, I think you summed it up really well. It's the fantasy epic element is, I think, something we don't see a lot of in modern comics these days. I mean, obviously you see these elements with superheroes, but I mean outside of superhero comics. And I think you're really nailing that blend of fantasy and realism too.
Thank you.
So much.
Yeah, we love walking a tightrope. So the fantasy world and the real world, the fantasy and the horror of it all. Yeah, we love to just sort of kind of balance genres and tones as much as possible. And Bob's art also walks that tightrope with us I think, pretty spectacularly.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about how like the term of like a piece of media having something for everybody like is not, it's not often the most positive thing, because that can end up meaning that it's quite broad or whatever. But like we are like trying to do all the things we love in this, like really following our bliss with this whole process. And so yeah, there's a lot going on. It bounces around between some extremes.
Following our bliss. I love that.
Yeah.
So genuine.
Yeah, and so it's like such a upsetting and gruesome book at times, but that's us following our bliss.
Yeah. making others miserable. Yeah.
Perfect. I love it.
Perfect. Awesome. Amazing. Well, issue 5 begins the second act of the book, as it were. So if you guys had to sum up the difference between Act 1 and Act 2, what would it be?
Yeah, Act 1 of the book is very steeped in mystery. We've been joking around a lot about this this line from a comicbook.com review that said like I'm 4 issues in, I still don't know what this book is, but I love it. And that is something we've really enjoyed, and I've also been a little taken off guard by is just how much people are like, what is this? What is going on? And it is because the first 4 issues are quite cryptic, and there's a lot sort of held back from you, and so if you're following along with that first half, you're probably going to have like a lot of questions, but hopefully, you're entertained enough to keep going. The back half is where a lot of that is really going to start to come together, and I think that'll really be evident to you if you've read issue 4 and you saw what happened at the end, where some things came to a head. We finally saw our characters who, this mysterious girl who wouldn't burn, who's been in the cold opens, finally shows up in the present day facing our main character. And so all of that has finally come to a head, and this back half is just all about that. It's all about going, here's what this was, here's why this matters, and then all of that just rocketing you towards the conclusion. And so emotionally they're quite different. We're heading forward from a space where the midpoint is our like darkest, lowest point. And so we're going to be going on quite a different journey than the first half, and it's all going to start to make a lot of sense.
Yes.
That sounds satisfying.
I agree. Yeah, that's pretty much how we built it, where like maybe even getting you to maybe potentially like a frustratingly like anxious point with the first act, with all these questions that we raise, and then Act 2 is like you're going up the roller coaster all of Act 1, and Act 2 is going down.
First 4 issues, ka-chunka, chunka, chunka, chunka. And then
Wee!
Yeah.
Hands up, hands up. The series has spanned multiple time periods. Do you guys have a corkboard with red string going every which way?
No. We I did basically, like, at one point there was a big shift in the second act and exactly where we were going and how we were going to unravel all of these questions that are set up in the first one. And it involved a bunch of structural stuff and added even more time periods that we were going to. There's a little tease for you. We go to several more periods in the second act. And that was starting to get so intense that I did lay out like a linear note of like, we go to here and then here, like a chronological thing. But no corkboard, no red strings or anything.
You're going to need to cut that, because that sort of gets ahead of the fact that the final issue is Kill Your Darlings 2099.
That's hilarious.
No, it really, like, it seems very twisty, and it seems like there's so many places we go, but like we've worked on this thing for 3 years, and so we've talked through all of it so much that like it's all very straight in my head, at least. I'm so familiar with all of it.
Oh my god, what if there's like a fan edit where a fan's like, I'm putting it in chronological order.
Oh,
this is the true version.
I don't know, that could be interesting.
They just did it with Hawks and Pox.
Yeah. I'm very interested to see that.
I think it would be less dramatic. We've structured it so then we jump back and forth for maximum dramatic effect. But it would certainly be interesting.
I just understand the whole story immediately.
Yeah.
The cat was never in the bag. Yeah.
All the payoff right at the front. Yeah.
You guys are coming off of issue 4, which features, and not necessarily in this order, people being ripped in half, magic swords, and plenty of action, where the previous issues kind of set up everything that was going on with Rose and her fantasy. Did you guys have any thoughts while structuring this, like this, when you figured this is how we want to do it?
Issue 4 has always been the big sort of like climactic action issue to the first half of the story. For a long time, the events of issue 5 were unraveled within issue 4. And that was all the big sort of information that we would sort of drop on the audience at the very end of the first arc. And then when we started writing issue 4, it became very, very clear that there would be no space for that stuff, because the stuff in issue 5 is some of the most important stuff in the entire series. It's been there since the very, very beginning. It was one of the first things that was conceived for the book, and so we've always had a specific point in mind for when that would come.
That's one of a few elements that went from being like a scene or like a footnote, like to like, oh, like this is like its own story, and so it sort of busted out of the confines of issue 4. Yeah,
but we always knew Francine was coming in issue 4.
Yes, I mean, there was always that's always been an element of the series, is that every issue is like incredibly jam packed, like so much so that we like that's been like the hardest part probably of like every issue, is figuring out how to fit everything in and make it all feel smooth. But that 4 was the issue that breathes, where it goes like, this is like one extended, intense, like at one point it was more like a haunted house, like that, like it was always like, yeah, this is where we kind of cut loose for a minute and drop some bombs on you.
You know, it shows an incredible confidence, I think, in your storytelling ability. All three of you, of course, that you aren't inclined to have someone be split in half on page 1. You know what I mean? Just to like grab that reader and be like, now we know we have them. They're going to come back to buy more issues. Like you had the confidence to tell the story the way you wanted to tell it, and it's worked, obviously, because obviously it's selling out, but also reviewers are loving it too, and we're drawn into these characters, and I think that's really cool.
Thank you. It's like it's like a hard sort of driving principle of like having a story under the hood that you like love and like means something to you and that you feel confident in, but then like the work on top of that is like a much bigger challenge, is like, how do you take all of those pieces and arrange them in the way that they're like the most thrilling, and that there's always something fucking crazy like to keep you like looped in whenever you might be straying for a second, something fucking crazy happens, whether that is somebody getting ripped in half or just some like Looney Tunes, like cartoon animal shit, like whatever it could be, and again, that's us following our bliss. It's like, what would we need at this moment to get us back in? Like, we're just going nuts.
Yeah. Especially with issue 4, it was like we could rip someone in half at the very beginning, I guess, but then where would we go? We have such an incredible artist in Mr. Bob Quinn here that we know we can get away with just opening an issue with some intrigue and feeling confident enough that you're not going to put it down until the end, so we don't need to put the biggest and craziest thing right up front.
Start off a little quiet. You have somebody eat a baby, and then from there,
and then ramp up to tearing.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I read that in the hero's journey. It starts with the baby eating.
It's one of the important.
And the mentor comes in.
And
the mentor's like
the monomyth, and then it becomes the bi-myth because there's 2 parts of it.
Exactly. It's the perfect 3-act structure. Bob, issue 4, your work drawing the sword fight scene is exceptional. I loved the framing, the pace of it, to the point where like the way she swings the sword, you can tell it's heavy. You know what I mean? Like you can see like the momentum in the body language, and it made me wonder, was Bob in his study with a giant sword swinging it around and someone was taking pictures of him or something? Or how do you get that right?
So, actually very early in my career, 90% of my morning was spent taking photographs of myself. And I'm now, how many years in now? I don't even know how long I've been doing this. I've now been doing it long enough that like a lot of that stuff has been internalized. So it's like I don't need to do it as much anymore. But yeah, I did spend a lot of time, and I would like try to pick up a heavy thing, or like a number of mornings I did in fact take all of the pillows off of the couch and then set a timer on the camera and then leap across my living room onto the pillows and injure myself on a couple of occasions. But you know, it paid dividends.
Yeah.
You know, long term, I don't need to do it anymore because I learned how the human body is constructed by looking at my own gross human flesh flung in various directions.
He just revealed to us just the other day that he has a ton of reference photos of his own face for expressions and stuff.
Cool.
And now I'm incredibly determined to get some of those in the back.
Someone hack his computer. Let's see it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I want some of them in the back of the trade so
I'll just
bad.
give them to you for free. I have to find the one. I have to see if I can find the dates on these so I can actually line them up on where we were, so I can be like, okay, here's the part where, you know, I don't know. Look, I don't know where we are anymore. I don't know what's happened in what issue. It's been a long time, but that one face, I'll see if I can find it.
Great.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Nice. So, at the core of the story, the general thing seems to be trauma and how it spills off into Rose's life and affects her. What inspired you to go down this route? Was it like personal issues? Was it just how the story came about?
Yeah. The original like nuggets of the idea came to us during a very, very dark time. Like it was like peak COVID. We were both like frontline workers. Yeah, the first like imagery of it popped into my head, and then I called Griffin and I was like, "What is this? What is this a story? What do we do with this?" And it was the crayon drawings from issue 1 of like the girl in front of the cave and everything, and that, yeah, it was like I literally like that popped into my head as I was walking into a shift that I was incredibly anxious about, and like the more that we talked about it, the more that we sort of like, you know, churned these feelings that we were feeling of anxiety and depression and all these things. And like, you know, we were very determined from the start to not just make a simple like angry, like the monster is our anxiety and we're going to make a character miserable with it so people understand what we go through. We didn't want it to be this like one-to-one thing, but it was certainly informed by that, where it was like we are really going through it at the moment. And interestingly, like in many different ways, feelings like that and also, quite opposed feelings have informed major parts of the story at really pivotal parts of our lives throughout these years of working on it. Like the final beats of the final issue, a lot of it came to me literally during a terrible panic attack in my car, and like it is so like it's so weird how like just that like intense feelings generate imagery, and so like a lot of it is us dealing with stuff, and I don't if people have been like, why are you doing this to this poor girl, and it's like it is for a reason, and I hope that people by the time they get to the end kind of understand where we're coming from, because it's not just an exercise in misery. We're trying to express some feelings.
Why are you doing this poor girl? Because nobody remembers the weekend that everything was great and nothing happened.
Yeah,
it's true.
Like a great heroes are made from great difficulty.
Absolutely.
You stupid idiots. What are you thinking this?
God damn.
He's on his rant. It's the soapbox. It's the Bob soapbox. We do this every week.
And that's when I created Spider-Man.
Damn you, hooligans. Ethan, to your point, like, I think people will connect with the story because of that trauma. And I think CJ used the word like spillover. Like, as someone who has faced trauma in his youth from his parents, like, I think there's a relatable thing there, and that's really interesting. I don't think we've seen a story like that before. Not to spoil anything, because you kind of get there in the next issue, I think. But like it emotionally, like I really connected with it like on a human level, and I think.
Oh, I'm really glad to hear that. Yeah, we're definitely that issue is no exception. We're sorting some stuff out for ourselves. It's very, very, as I said in the letter in the back of issue 1, like if you relate to that stuff, glad to hear it. Also, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to take this even further into a serious direction, it appears the goopy rainbow stuff is evil, related to the enemy. What's your beef with rainbows?
I don't think the rainbow waters or power, whatever it is, coursing through the imaginary world, Rosewood. I don't think it's inherently evil. I think it's being used by evil.
Okay.
And so I think what the sort of headcanon, we don't actually like get into really explaining what it is. We sort of just point you in the direction and hope folks will get there, which is something we like to do on the book quite a bit. We want audiences to be able to sort of just have their own version of it in their head. We don't like over-explaining anything. We think that's kind of boring. To us, it's sort of like just like the creative sort of energy of Rosewood that has been, being depleted and sort of sucked dry by this great and terrible evil that hides out in the caves and in the forests and such. And so it has been using it for its own purposes. And that just continues to be the case through the end of issue 3 and issue 4, when it sort of uses all of that power to possess Elliot and break out into the real world.
I like that explanation, but also you you guys have made me scared to open a pack of Skittles. So. Taste the rainbow will taste you.
See, this is actually...
That's good.
I love that.
All right, trademark that, CJ. It's funny, we actually, when we were designing what we affectionately call Monster Elliot, we liked the idea that we could use something that is traditionally very like happy, like a rainbow, all these like multicolor, and use it on a design that is like upsetting and bad. And so again, it's like this thing in a weird twisted context is suddenly a different thing.
Because we had early designs of him with like black sludge coming out of him and stuff, and it was just like, the rainbows coming out of the eyes and the mouth. It's fucking weird.
Yeah.
Bob nailed it. Looks good.
It
Dig
does.
up some of those old drawings where it was like those weird things where it's like just these black eyes and like vomiting weird rainbow sludge. And I was just like,
the very first one.
the
very first one was even
upsetting.
more unsettling for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Think you made the right choice?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
That would have been
a little less,
maybe
maybe
more
distracting.
That would have been maybe more of a bummer.
Sure.
Because this is upsetting and it's kind of cool and it's kind of iconic. The other one is like if this dude's face was like turned to mush, which is kind of nasty.
Yeah.
So issue 5, which is releasing next week, again shifts gears and takes place in a different time. So can you guys give a little teaser without any spoilers? What can readers expect?
Yeah, well, like we said, this wasn't always the plan for issue 5. This used to just be a sort of I don't know, not B plot, but this used to be the climax of issue 4, and then it was too big, so it became issue 5. And yeah, it's been there since the very beginning. The events of issue 5 are in the underbelly of the entire series. And it's something that, again, because it was so present so early on, it is a moment that we have been building to for a very long time. And with each issue, even though we never really... We don't really gesture towards it at all in, I think, 1 through 4 too much, but it's just something that informed the way we sort of structured the first 4 issues, knowing that it was coming. And I think it sheds light on a character that people may not be as familiar with. And I think with that, there will be conflict, mostly. We want to sort of push readers to have their own opinions and feelings about everything going on. Yeah, and yes, it does take place in another time period. You'll have to crack the book open and flip through a few pages to find out when.
It was one of the toughest parts to write. It was brutal. I was like bummed out. I was like bummed out during it, and then like afterward, we were like, "This is really good. We're really happy with this. How are people going to respond to this?" And like we've been on pins and needles, just like waiting for reactions. And thankfully, the few people that have been like very like into it. And so like yeah, I'm very excited to hear what everybody else thinks, because this issue means a lot to us.
Yeah, because obviously your first audience ends up being me 98% of the time.
Right.
And then I read it and I was like, this is great.
Yeah. And we were like, okay, great, because
nothing to worry about.
The email that we sent Bob when we were like, scripts in the Dropbox. We did a little something different on this one. Let us know how you feel about it. And there's a lot of acting going on, and Bob is acting his ass off in issue number 5, as you always do, sir. But there's less crazy fantasy stuff going on in issue 5, and more just very real, visceral horror going on. So like I like to think that issues 4 and 5 are very complementary of each other, where 4 has a lot of crazy fantasy stuff going on. It's got a big sword and everything. It's got a spooky haunted cave, and so that's a lot of the fantasy, and then issue 5 is the horror.
Issue 5 is the spooky haunted cave of your soul.
That's true. So endearing. When we were initially pitching the book, it was the Narnia meets Hereditary part of it. The this meets that we were sort of throwing out there. And yeah, I think you'll see that the sort of Hereditary of it also starts coming out a little bit more in issue 5. Yeah.
You almost are torturing yourselves because you knew it was coming, and it sounds like it was giving you anxiety to pull this off. And you put it so far ahead that you had to keep waiting and worrying.
Yeah. It was like Ethan's talking about how hard it was, right? And it was like sort of hard on, I think, our souls to write it.
Sure.
But it was actually one of the easiest issues to write, like on a sort of mechanical sense, where like it came out very easily. I did the first pass on, like, the way that Ethan and I work. I do the panel breakdowns and the panel descriptions, and Ethan will go in and add some dialogue and character stuff, and so then we have a full script. And so when I did the skeleton, I was like, oh, this played out differently than I thought it would, and it's somehow one of our most fast-paced issues, despite being one of our most devastating.
Yeah, that was unexpected. It's a heartbreaking breeze. Yeah.
I recommend people listen to Johnny Cash's "Hurt" while they read it.
Oh yeah,
I think that's the credits song of issue 5.
Very true.
So it's like a weird dichotomy that happened with it, where it's like, oh, this is so terrible, but it was really easy to write because we sort of internalized it really early on. So when it came time to writing it, especially given the amount of space that we had now, instead of like trying to figure out like how do we do this huge moment in like 5 pages, now it was like, oh, suddenly, like, yes, this feels so much better to have.
This and issue 1 had marinated the longest. They were in the oven the longest.
Oh,
and so they just came out very formed. Really interesting.
I feel like the next 2 issues, they go hand in hand. They go together really well. Obviously, people are going to have to wait a little longer for issue 6.
Yeah.
What made 8 issues the right amount of issues for the series? Because it's kind of unconventional to have a mini-series run 8 and not 6 or 5.
It was kind of like a few different like shifts of like, we wanted it to be like definitive. We wanted it to have a beginning, middle, and end, and like for it to not have any fat on the bones at all. And, we planned it over and over and over, and like replanned it over and over and over. And we knew we were trying to tell something that was like pretty sprawling, and took place like over a good deal of time. And that like a lot would happen plot wise, like it would be really jam packed. And so like 8 came about very early on, and
well, Ethan, if you recall, it was 7 for the longest time, and you had to convince me that it
That's
was
true.
to be 8, and
That's
thank
true.
God you did.
Yeah, I know.
Imagine trying to do it
oh my
in 7.
God, that would have been a nightmare.
From the artist's perspective, it is not 8.
Yeah, because you said 8 is extra large, right?
8 is
8
more
is
than double
extra
the size of a
large.
regular issue.
So it's almost like 9 or 10 then? In a
Yeah,
sense?
it was a
Somewhere around there.
it was a super sized finale. It's like you get like if it was a TV show, you get like a feature finale.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Nice.
And,
And let me tell you, it started the first draft of issue 8 way longer than that.
oh yeah, it was like 100 pages, and we had to whittle it down.
We're getting an El Camino for Kill Your Darlings.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
reference.
not an unfair comparison. But yeah, I don't know. It's just as time went on, it just made more and more sense of like we really love the idea of this series being split down the middle and having 4 issues on either side.
Oh, I
And-
see.
Yeah.
yeah.
When the Act 1, Act 2 situation like sort of revealed itself, it was when it was like, oh, yes, okay. Because we struggled with the back half for so long because it was such a strange shape in comparison to the first half. And so, and then especially when issue 5 spilled out of issue 4 and into its own thing, it was like, oh, fuck, okay. So, yeah, I guess this does have to be sort of split down the middle. And it just worked kind of perfectly where issue 5, again, like it's like the curtain comes down at the end of 4 and it comes back up on 5 and you're maybe not in the place that you expected, and it sort of acts as a new starting point for the second half of the series, while also, you know, it's the same story, we're still following the same threads and everything, but we sort of decided to start the second act in a place you won't expect, I think.
We haven't really talked about this anywhere, but we did start to discover that the number 8 was a weirdly recurring, weirdly faded thing with the series, and there's some stuff that we can't say about that yet, but we just started going like, holy shit, wait a second, it's 8 issues. Rose is 8 years old in issue 1. We do an 8-year time skip, and it just, the list kept going, and it was very, very surreal, and so I don't know, maybe people keep your eyes out for that in future issues.
Because you guys called this Project 8 when it first
yes,
released.
it was because of that. Yeah, we were like, oh, Project 8, that's the perfect way to tease it.
The 8 card as well in like tarot is also was bizarrely fitting to the story, where it depicts like a very strong woman with like an animal companion, which is a very common thing.
If you will.
Yeah.
It's destiny.
A very common witch trope.
Interesting. You know how superhero comics tend to have multiple story arcs, but then they'll have like an annual issue once a year, and it's a big one shot, and sometimes it leads to something, sometimes it's self-contained. If Kill Your Darlings had an annual issue that popped in maybe between issues 7 and 8, what would it be about?
There's plenty that it could be about, I think.
Yeah, Griffin is literally pitching me this at the moment.
Really?
Like every day I'm just like, there's more. There's more. Where like having wrapped it up and.
But make no mistake, the ending is incredibly hard and definitive.
The ending
Not
is
past
the ending.
Right.
But because the nature of how we structured it, we've been talking about the many points in time that we go to, which then leaves many gaps in there. And now that we have the full picture, it's like, oh, and now you can see all the like little things that could be additive without being like necessary, where the 8 issues are like an extremely efficient, like that was kind of the goal with the book, was like, what is the most efficient and exciting version of this story that we can do?
Nice.
And that's why we sort of put ourselves in a box very early on, that it's like, it's 8 issues. And then, you know, there was a crisis where when we were doing the script for 8 and we got Bob on the phone, we were like, is it 9? Do we have to split it? I'm so sorry. This is so long. I'm so sorry. But, yeah, it just sort of, and especially we sort of wrote ourselves into a corner with the way that we do the cold opens, where the cold opens, while they're extremely necessary to the story, did make it quite tricky, because after that we would be left with closer to like 16, 17 pages to do what we sort of think is the bulk, the actual like issue, like the things that we have to get done in this issue. So the story had to become even more efficient in that sort of setup that we made for ourselves, which was frustrating at times, but I'm very glad that we did it because I love the way that they all play.
There's an element of it. You asked like what would it be about. We unfortunately can't be specific, but I will say in issue 8, in our big feature finale, there's an element that I think will be apparent when you read it, that it's like, oh man, maybe there's more there. And I am hesitant. I'm hesitant to do anything like that, but Griffin's pitching hard, and I don't know. Anything's
Make them want more, right? At the end of the day.
Yes.
Well, I think people, after they pick up Kill Your Darlings #5 in a few days and read all the back issues and then finish the series over the next few months, are going to agree that this is a fantastic series. I think folks should jump on now because it sounds like it's a good starting point if you buy the other issues, of course, because we're about to have this final ride in the second act that's going to be pretty cool.
Yes. And so it's like, it's like we keep the roller coaster metaphor for some reason keeps working where like you could ride a roller coaster by yourself, but it's more fun with other people, and we're trying to have as many people on board as possible because we think it's going to be a really fun ride. The book was written for monthly single issues. That is how we've always wanted it to come out, and it's been built for like maximum effect of like getting you to the end of each issue and leaving you with that cliffhanger for next issue. But they're also built so then they're all this one big epic, as we keep saying. And so if you want to hop on board the roller coaster, that is the second half of it. Issues 1 through 4 are in stores now, and issue 5, January 17th.
If you can't find the first 4, burn through them digitally and then get in for when all of the craziest shit believe it or not, the craziest shit in the book happens. Shit. Like you get ready for the roller coaster drop.
What the fuck? Is that a promise?
Yes, it's a
yes. That's the Ethan S. Smith guarantee.
Because 5, 6, and 7, you're going to be like, Jesus Christ, and then 8 is its whole own thing. It was it's us giving Bob literally every crazy thing we had left.
That's awesome.
And him absolutely killing it. So jump in. It's time.
As someone who reviews like 10 books a week, has reviewed 4,000 books in 12 years,
Jesus.
I love that this feels different in its plotting. Whenever there's something a little different, I'm instantly liking it more that week. I love Spider-Man or whatever, but this one feels a little different, and it feels special in that way.
I appreciate it so much. Thanks, man.
Yeah, I was talking earlier with David that I am loving the stuff KLC was doing. Like, I loved Vanish, and I loved Schlub, and now this is just, you guys have hit a trifecta of
appreciate
it. Thank you.
That's no problem, yeah.
I mean, creator owned, man. It's where it's at now.
For us to even be mentioned in the same breath as our heroes on those books means the world. And so I really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. So go pick up Kill Your Darlings #5, January 17th. Thank you guys so much for being on the APT Comics podcast.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, David. Thank you, CJ. Talk soon.